for the welcome. We'll start with Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana, Yamunatira Vanachari, Yamunatira Vanachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jai Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from chapter 3, Karma Yoga, starting text 10. So I will read the Sanskrit and translation can be read by the participants. If you pick up your hand, then I can call your names. Sahayagna praja srishtva puro vacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam yeshavostvishta kamadhuk. Radhe Govinda.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent 4 generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna sacrifice, because this performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation." Thank you very much.
Thank you. So in this verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives us some details about how we can be happy. So I would like some participation here. So what are the means we employ to become happy? And what do we teach kids? Like how do we try to become happy in this world? Anybody?
Materially, Mataji, we try
Sorry?
to
Materially.
materially we try to satisfy, if not in the spiritual, if not spiritually, materially, because they try to gratify their senses to become happy.
Yes. So we work very hard, right? We study so much, and even after we get some job, we look for always opportunities to grow at work, and we do extra degrees in the evening. That's what NRI community mostly they do that. And then kids also, we put them in many activities like Kuman, piano, tennis. Nothing is bad, but just we work so hard. But the happiness that we are trying to get is either physical or mental. We are either trying to satisfy our senses, or we are either trying to satisfy our mind with some prestige, fame, accomplishment. So these mental and physical pleasures that we are seeking, they're not very long lasting. Even after you work hard and achieve something, when we get it, it's satisfying only for a little bit of time. Again, we want to achieve something more. So it's not like completely enough. It doesn't give us that sustainable feeling of satisfaction. It only gives us more hankering. So here in this verse, Krishna is telling in the translation, he's saying that be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So Krishna is giving the happiness formula. We are trying in various ways, but that's not the way to be happy. If we want to be happy, we have to perform yajna, sacrifice. If we buy something new, some appliance or some video game or whatever it is, it comes with a manual. Whenever we buy something, it comes with a manual. So this Bhagavad Gita is like our manual, and in that Krishna is telling it's the manual for human life. Krishna is telling how to be happy. He's saying you can live happily here and you can even achieve liberation. Prabhupada gives the examples of different yajnas in the purport. He tells, all these different kinds of yajnas are very expensive. In this day and age, no one knows even the mantras, the pronunciation properly. It's hard to perform all those different kinds of yajnas mentioned in the Vedas. So for this day and age, there is one yajna, which is very simple to perform. Anyone knows what it is?
Chanting the holy name.
Sankirtan Yajna, chanting the holy name. That is what is prescribed for this age, Kali Yuga. And it can be performed easily. That's what makes us happy. From this verse, it's saying, you will be happy if you perform yajna. And what is the sacrifice for this age? Chanting the holy name. When we chant the holy name, the satisfaction we get, it's not available in the material world. No matter how much you do, how much you accomplish, you will not feel that satisfaction you feel by chanting. That is the recipe for happiness. To be happy, chant. Chant and be happy. Okay, we'll go to verse 311 now. I'm trying to be brief so that we cover all the verses. And please raise your hand if anyone would like to read the translation. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah paramavapsyata.
I will read. Shall I read? Go ahead, Ritu Mataji. I'll unmute you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, go ahead. You said first, please. I'll take another one.
The demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all.
So he told, if you do sacrifices, you will be happy. Now he's explaining how, what happens when you do the sacrifice. For demigods, I think you all know the concept, but I'll just tell just in case they don't know. Demigods are the administrative heads of the universe. Just like every country has, United States of America has a president, and also it has different secretary of state positions. So demigod positions are like that. We have a different demigod for each aspect of the universe. For sun, for moon, for air, for rain, and things like that. For everything, there is a different demigod. And it's like a position. It's not like one person will stay there forever. It changes. Different people occupy that position at different times. So the formula is for us to live happily, we need to please those demigods. For that, we need to perform all these yagnas. So the pleasure of demigods or displeasure of demigods depends on how we perform these yagnas. But the actual beneficiary of these yagnas is actually Vishnu. Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary. We don't pay attention to mantras, but if we really pay attention to any ceremony, at the end they say Sarvam Krishna Arpanamastu, something like that they will have. So when Krishna is satisfied, it's like pouring water at the root of a tree. When we pour water at the root of a tree, all the branches, twigs and leaves, everything will be nourished. Similarly, when we do these yagnas for the satisfaction of Krishna, then all the demigods will be satisfied also. If a person under their rule is performing these sacrifices, they will feel happy. In India, there is this misconception, right? If we come from some polytheistic background, we have all these different demigods on the altar, and then Krishna is also there, but we treat everyone the same. And if we come to ISKCON and if we say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everyone is like a servant of Krishna. You don't really need to do anything separately for other demigods. Then people may think, what if they get offended? If I don't worship them, what if they become angry? The answer is here. If we satisfy Vishnu, if Vishnu is happy, then all the demigods will also be happy. Just like we don't pour water on the branches, leaves and everything, right? We only pour water at the root. And when the root is nourished, everything else is nourished. So if we perform these sacrifices for the pleasure of Vishnu, the demigods will also be satisfied. And the side effect of this yajna performance is ultimately we'll become liberated from material bondage. We don't get this side effect by trying to do something in the material world for material satisfaction. We'll become more and more bound by the ropes of karma. But when we do it this way, when we expect happiness by performing yagnas, the side effect is better. It's not bondage, it's liberation. When we do this, all our activities become purified. There is a nice sentence Prabhupada quoted from the Vedas in this purport. It says, Ahara Shuddhau Sattva Shuddhi, Sattva Shuddhau Dhruva Smriti, Smriti Lambhe Sarva Grantham Vipramokshaha. By performance of yagna, one's eatables become sanctified. So what we eat will become sanctified when we perform yagna. When we eat sanctified food, our whole existence becomes purified. We are what we eat, we say, right? Even in America, they say you are what you eat. If you are eating sanctified food, your behavior, your activities, your whole existence becomes purified. And when we lead such purified life, when we live that like existence is purified, then the finer tissues in the memory, they also become sanctified. And when memory is sanctified, then one can think of liberation. If you go tell a random person on the street when we distribute books, this is for liberation, they may not want to be liberated. They want to be in the material world and enjoy, right? So that thought won't be there in their mind. This is when the thought comes. When you eat prasadam, when the existence is purified, when memory is sanctified, that's when the thought of being liberated comes. Even getting that thought is such advancement. When we combine all these things, that's when Krishna consciousness will manifest in someone's life. And Prabhupada says Krishna consciousness is the greatest necessity of present day society. Why do you think so? Anyone? Why is Krishna consciousness a necessity?
Because in this material world, nobody is happy. They are seeking happiness. So it is a necessity to be in Krishna consciousness.
For people to be happy? That's what you're saying?
I could not hear you, Mataji. Sorry.
For people to become happy, you're saying it's a necessity, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Everybody is so unhappy and they're working so hard to become happy. Even to be sane, it's such a hard thing now. The whole world. Hanumat Prisha Kamara says insanity is a response to crazy situations of a sane person. Even sane people become insane when they're put in crazy situations. That's the sane response to insane situation. So how do we keep ourselves afloat in this whole turbulent society? How do we even make ourselves happy? There is no solution for all these material problems. When we understand that we need to get out of this place, when we understand that material happiness is like a mirage, all these things, when we get the spiritual knowledge and when we practice Krishna consciousness, that's when we can feel satisfied and happy within the heart. This happiness is not of, mind and body like we discussed in the first verse. It is the happiness of spirit soul. That's why it will be suprasidati, Bhagavatam says, right? It will be completely satisfying the self. This is what will be everlasting for us. If you remember the happy moments that you had in Krishna consciousness, when you remember also, you feel them. At the same time, you might have accomplished so many material things in life. When you remember them now, they are insignificant. You don't feel so much like you felt before. It becomes stale, material happiness. But spiritual happiness is ever fresh. Whenever you remember, it gives you the same feeling that you had earlier. So that is the need of the present day society. They are not being able to solve their problems, nor are they being able to be happy. To be happy, there is only one solution: to engage in sacrifice. Okay, verse 12 now. Let me scroll. Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yagna bhavita tairdattana pradayebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva saha.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply your necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief.
Nice verse. We may first feel, I'm not a thief. It's just too heavy. The sentence that Bhagavad Gita is using is too heavy. But it's not too heavy. First of all, we are asking someone to give us all these necessities. Nobody can manufacture. No human can manufacture the eatables. Grains, fruits, vegetables, milk, sugar, whatever you may take, even non-vegetarians, the meat, no man can manufacture all these things. And the plants, they need heat, light, water, and air. No man can manufacture all these things. These are all given to us by the Supreme Lord. How much electricity bill do we pay every month for the 2-3 hours of lights and everything that we use? Like $150 or $200, $300, right? if we have to pay the bill of sun god, we won't be able to. The amount of light he is giving, the amount of warmth he is giving, don't you think we need to pay back? It's like somebody is giving us something. Should we just take it and not reciprocate and not do anything for paying off? That is a thief, right? You take someone else's thing and not reciprocate that it's theirs and not do anything for them. That is being thief. That's exactly what this verse is saying. We are taking and we are not paying back. The payback is through yajna. If we do the sacrifice, then satisfy Krishna, then all the demigods are satisfied. The payback is through the sacrifice. And also Prabhupada says in the purport that this human life is meant for something different than sense gratification. So sense gratification is there for every life. Animals also eat, sleep, mate, and defend. They have kids, the family, affection, everything they have. The only thing they don't have is a facility to get liberated. This valuable asset of human life is meant for that. It's not meant for sense gratification. So if we don't use it for that purpose, the creation is not meant for just enjoying here and leaving the body. The creation is also meant for us to go back to Godhead. If we don't use it for that purpose, then we are liable to be punished by the laws of material nature. We may say, I'm not doing any crime. You said I can use for some other purpose, but I think I can use it for this, so I'm using it for that. How am I liable to be punished just for that? The example is, suppose government has some money. It gives somebody to use the money for a particular project. That person doesn't use for that project and he uses for a different purpose. Is he liable for punishment or not? Without any approval, he is liable for punishment. He cannot use what it is meant for something else. The same thing, this body, this human life, this material world that Krishna has created, it was meant for working towards liberation. It's not meant for just, satisfying these senses that we have just for in this life and waste the entire time and energy and resources that the demigods are providing. That's why we become thieves and we become liable for punishment. What does the verse say once again? In charge of various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Yeah. We'll move on to 13 now. Volunteers for reading the translation? Okay, Ritu Mataji. Did you pick up your hand again? Or
Yeah, I can read translation 13.
Sure. Yeah. Yagna Shishtashinas Santo Muchyante Sarvakil Vishay Bhunjate Te Tvagham Papa Ye Pachantyatma Karanat.
Translation: the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sin because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment rarely eat only.
Very well, thank you. So in this verse, Prabhupada says that offered food It releases us from all the punishments. We discussed how we are liable to be punished if we don't offer and eat it. And it also even immunizes us from different contaminations. With other thieves, they suffer the punishment and also reactions due to not doing as recommended. Another example I thought of is, suppose there is an army officer. He can go into battles with other countries, and during the battle, he may kill several people. If he kills a lot of people on the other side, he may get recognized. There are so many awards each country has for people who fight so bravely. But if he comes back home and if he kills somebody by himself, he'll go to jail for that. No one will appreciate that at that time. So this is what it is. There is a recommendation for our life. There are certain rules that we need to follow. If we don't follow, then we have the reaction. This is automatic. No one is sitting there watching us. Of course, all the Panchabhutas and Super Soul, they will record our deeds, but no one is actively involved in trying to make a decision. It's all automatic. If you do something like this, you'll get a reaction, something like that. So we can avoid all those reactions if we eat offered food. And we have several different kinds of yagnas. Of course, Sankirtan yagna, chanting the holy name. But we also engage in Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, like hearing, like you are all hearing Bhagavad Gita every day or 2 days a week. That is Shravanam. And then when we do Kirtan at home, when we chant, that is also Kirtanam. If you think of Krishna, that's Smaranam. And if we perform deity worship, that is Archanam. Any of these processes is considered yagna. And this world has so much sinful association. Am I right? If you go out, all you see is sin. All these big billboards, with all the meat advertisements, and there is so much intoxication and illicit sex. So this world is full of sinful association. And if we keep associating with sinful people, obviously we will become sinful. But when we engage in all these sacrifices, the yagna, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam, all these things will immunize us from becoming sinful. Did you ever think of it? Like it's such an accomplishment to be a devotee in this world full of sinful activities. It's only possible because we are immunized by the process that Srila Prabhupada gave us. In verse 314 also, it's mentioned that by eating only prasadam, not only the past sinful reactions are vanquished, past sinful reactions are also taken away, but we will be immune to all the contamination of the material nature. Just like if there is coronavirus or any other epidemic disease, if we take a vaccine, we are protected from the attack of that epidemic. Similarly, when we offer the food to Krishna and then take it, it makes us resistant to all these material contamination. And Prabhupada writes this one sentence which is very significant. He writes that one who is accustomed to this practice is called a devotee of the Lord. One who wants to only eat prasadam is a devotee of the Lord. Whether one is a devotee or not a devotee, everybody is dependent on the Lord for the grain production. Everybody depends on food grains. Non-vegetarian people, they depend on it indirectly. The animal has to eat the grain. That's when you get the meat. But food grains are produced from rains. Again, rains are produced by performance of yajna. So all these verses, they are emphasizing how important it is to perform yajna, sacrifice. We all are dependent on performing yajna for the rains. Once, I think it happened a few times, I think I heard from a couple of devotees from a couple of places. If there was a drought in a certain location, when devotees go and do this Sankirtan for a continuous few hours, it rained. After several months and years, it rained. So that's like practical proof that this process of Sankirtan Yajna works for this age. And from rain comes food grains. Let's read 14 and 15 since we didn't read and I already explained. Volunteers for translation? Ebangini Mataji, nice name. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yajnad bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties.
Thank you, Mataji. We'll read the next one also. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagne pratishtitam.
Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice.
Thank you. So in this verse, it is mentioned that if we want to satisfy Krishna by performing all these yajnas, then we have to get the direction from the Vedas. Vedas give us these working directions on how to satisfy Krishna through all these sacrifices. So anything we do without the direction of Vedas, some people may say, I have my own way of worshipping the Lord. Many people say that this is how I want to worship. If we do anything without the direction of Vedas, it's called vikarma. It's unauthorized work. And some people try to enjoy this material world, many of them. Only in the olden days, people used to try Vedic means of getting what they want. But now everybody has their different means of getting what they want for their senses. It is vikarma. It is unauthorized and it is sinful. It becomes very binding if we don't follow Vedic rituals. The reason why Krishna has given us, Vyasadeva has given us all these Vedas is by following a particular process. Yes, we want some sense gratification, which is, properly engaged in Vedas. They give different methods, but through those methods, by following those methods, we can also advance. We can also move on to the next stage. Like different people have different directions. People are in different modes, right? Different modes have different procedures they can follow. Like people in the mode of ignorance, they want to eat meat. But then the procedure that has to be followed is by worshipping the Kali on a certain day in a month. They can sacrifice a goat to Kali and then that meat they can eat. When they do say all those mantras, eventually they'll become curious on what these mantras are, right? You want to understand what those mantras are. Those mantras actually say that, okay, now I'm not being able to control my tongue. I'm killing you, but I do give you an opportunity to take birth again and kill me. You can take birth and kill me. Then you would think, oh no, I don't want to be killed again like I'm killing this goat. And then you advance. But what will happen if there are all these mass slaughterhouses and the meat is packaged and sold in the grocery stores? People just eat without thinking about it. And then they go down and down and down in sinful reactions. That's why even if somebody has any desire, just trying to fulfill it through Vedic means will elevate. It will take them to higher platform. Whereas doing this vikarma kind of enjoyment will only bind and will only pull us down and down and down. And it will become very hard to even realize that we are not this body, we are spirit, soul, and we are meant to advance, not just rot in this material world like this. 316, the last verse for today. Anybody else would like to read the translation? Please pick up their hand. Okay, read the Mataji. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriyaramo mogam partha sajivati.
My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin, living only for the satisfaction of the senses. Such a person lives in vain.
Thank you. This is also very heavy, right? Initially, when I first became a devotee, I thought, oh my gosh, it's like my whole life is waste. That's what Bhagavad Gita is saying. Is it true? Sometimes people may feel like, it's heavy, but like we saw, if we really deeply study, we can see that it's not really heavy. That's what we are doing. And it's an honest explanation of what kind of life will become, will lead us to what. So like I said before, this human form of life is not meant for sense gratification. It is meant for spiritual realization. And this yajna system is planned in such a way that we can satisfy the desires. There are so many ways to satisfy the desires. It's not like everybody can satisfy their desires. And also it makes us understand that this whole world, the prosperity is a very choicest term. Any wishes, they, include this prosperity, right? Any festival wishes or New Year wishes, happy and prosperous, they say. So this prosperity does not depend on our own efforts. You might have experienced in your life, sometimes you might have put in a lot of effort to accomplish something, but it may not happen. Sometimes you might not have put as much effort, and it will happen at that time. So there are other factors than our own efforts. And there is background arrangement of the Supreme Lord, which is directly carried out by all these demigods. Whatever is the Lord's desire, that's what happens. And whatever we deserve according to our karma, that's what happens. And demigods have to sanction whatever we need. And for that reason, we have to do all these yagnas if we want to satisfy the senses in a Vedic way. You satisfy the demigods, and then they'll give whatever you need. There are many examples, right? In many stories, they do these sacrifices, and a demigod will come with a pot to give them, whatever they need. Either kids or, some other siddhis or next life in a heavenly planet. All these things people can accomplish. Those were the goals at one point of time. Now the goals are very puny, very small, little goals. So even this practice is also practice of Krishna consciousness. Because when one keeps doing these things, eventually they will become Krishna conscious. But what if they don't become Krishna conscious? What will happen? All these principles, they just become like moral codes. Don't lie, don't cheat kind of things. That's where their advancement stops. If they don't take the essence of the Vedas, Vedascha sarvair ahameva vedya. Krishna has to be known by all the Vedic procedures. If they don't take up that essence, then they'll remain on this moral platform. They won't transcend the material nature and attain to Krishna consciousness. They'll just remain on this platform, which is very likely. That's why Narada Vyasadeva, after writing all these Vedas for the people of Kali Yuga, he was not satisfied. Then Narada Muni walks into his ashram and he asks, "What happened? Why are you so morose?" And then Vyasadeva said, "I had no other selfish desires when I wrote all these Vedas. I did all these for the benefit of people, so that they know the proper procedures and ultimately so that they can come to Krishna." But then what Narada Muni says is, people are naturally attracted to sense gratification, and you have given them a means to fulfill their desires like this, and they will be lost in that. It's not obvious in what you wrote that one has to take shelter of Krishna. So now what you do is directly write Krishna's glories and the glories of devotees. That's when you'll actually be satisfied. So after he says that, then Vyasadeva writes Srimad Bhagavatam, and then he feels complete satisfaction. So that's the process that Prabhupada has given us. It's a direct process where we feel satisfied. We don't need to go through Vedas. We don't need to fulfill all the desires. We don't need to ultimately come to this conclusion that no matter how much satisfy my senses, ultimately they will never be satisfied. This is the process of Vedas, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. You do all these dharmic activities to get money, and you get money to do the sense gratification. And you do the sense gratification to ultimately realize that that has no happiness. And then you ultimately ask for liberation. This is not the process that Prabhupada has recommended us. He gave us the Nivritti Marga. This is Pravritti Marga. You try to, satisfy everything, and when it doesn't work, then you realize. But we just accomplish the bliss just by directly approaching Krishna and directly engaging in transcendental loving service. This is the process that Srila Prabhupada has given us, and it works. It's great. We don't have to spend lifetimes in coming to this conclusion. So that's the beauty of this whole thing. I will stop here and leave some time for comments and questions from all of you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
I would like to request Harilida Prabhu first to say a few.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much. First of all, Mataji, I want to thank you accepting our invitation at Parsadi Foundation within a short notice.
Thank you, Prabhu, for giving the opportunity. I'm grateful to you.
Mataji, you have very well explained all the verses, very meaningful, very appropriate according to the verses. So thank you for that. And we hope that we'll continue coming to Parsadi Foundation to enlighten our listeners. Thank you so much, Mataji. And now I will request Aradhana Mataji, please take the questions from the devotees if they have some. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Bol.
Thank you. Hare Bol, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. If any one of you have any questions, kindly raise your hand and we can take it one by one. Hemangini Mataji, do you have a question? Go to Gayatri Mataji first.
No, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Gayatri Mataji, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Dhanavad Prabhupada. This was a beautiful class. I was actually thinking about it because it was so timely. I was thinking it feels, I was just sitting in a park and chanting. I was the only one and everybody else was doing. I was like, it feels so lonely to be sometimes, so much craziness around. When you mentioned about Marat's comment that in the world of insanity, no, world of insanity, sanity is the response. If you could elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah, what I said is insanity is sane response for insane situations.
Insane.
So if the situation is so crazy, the response of a sane person is becoming crazy. So that's what it is.
Yeah, but is that acceptable? Like, say somebody is yelling at you and then you yell back, right? Like, so is that
That's how the world is designed to be like. If you respond like that, then you're not at fault because you're sane, but the situation is so insane that you respond insanely. The only way to transcend is by becoming spiritual. So in the material world, that's how the response would be, and it's accepted. It's okay. So what in the material world we have some okay things, but for a devotee, we try to transcend even those tempting situations. We have to learn to respond in a different way. We are expected actually to respond in a different way, being a devotee. Only with the strength of Krishna we will be able to do it. Otherwise, we'll become insane, and that is the response that is warranted, and it is natural. That's what Maharaj said. It's natural to become insane.
Yeah, because one of the reasons this came, like I was saying while I was outside, and these were like just school kids, but they're using such foul language. I was like thinking, oh my God, so insane. And you just spoke about it. So
yes. If a sane kid is put in that environment, then obviously he'll also respond like that, right? He'll also become like that. That's what naturally would happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else has any question for Mataji regarding today's session? I just wait a minute, Mataji, before we decide to wind down the call.
Okay, sure, no problem.
I guess nobody has any questions. The session was very, very informative and very clear. And the way you spoke, very soft and subtle, that was very, very inspiring to learn when giving classes and hearing as well. With that, on behalf of Partha Foundation, Mataji, we would like to once again thank you for giving us your valuable time and sharing your knowledge with us and giving us some insights on these 6 verses today, Mataji. 7 verses, sorry. And hope you keep coming and giving us your valuable association. With that, we would like to thank you and offer our obeisances at your lotus feet. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvaya vijat patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti vaishnav vrind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Parvri Sundari Radhika Mataji ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mataji, once again.
Thank you, Hare Lila Prabhu and Partha Foundation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Aradhana. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.